have another creepy roommate story time. So this girl named Adana emailed me and she was like, I have to tell you my story about my crazy roommate who tried to create an entity to attach itself to me. This happened back in 2017 in North Carolina. Adana had just graduated college and needed a roommate. Adana said her new job wasn't paying great, so she couldn't afford to live alone, and the only people that she knew that were really looking for roommates were single men or couples, both of which made her feel uncomfortable. So she was in this group for female solo travelers, and she had had good experiences with the group. She had even gone to Costa Rica on a trip with a girl that she met there. So she figured, why not? I'll post here and see if anyone needs a roommate. So she posts and she gets a message almost immediately from a girl named Naomi who was in her late 20s and said that she needed a roommate because she was moving to North Carolina soon for a finance job. They get on the phone. And immediately, Adana felt very at ease and comfortable with her. Naomi was very soft spoken, very friendly. And the second time they talk, it's on FaceTime. They decide that this situation is going to work out for both of them. Also, these are real names because Adana said that she doesn't care if Naomi sees this because now that she's far, far away from her, she can't do anything. So Adana moves first. She finds the apartment. It's a 2-bedroom and Naomi is moving a month later. The apartment was cute. It was on the second floor of a walk-up, and Adana said that she felt like, even though she hadn't met Naomi yet, she felt like they were friends. They talked all the time and they had a lot in common. Naomi liked indie music, cheesy Hallmark movies, and museums, just like Adana. Naomi moves in, and Adana said it felt really, really nice at first. It was like she had a really close friend right off the bat. They went out a lot together because neither of them had a lot of friends in that city. The girls also spent a lot of time just talking and hanging around at their apartment. Adana said she felt super comfortable. She was fascinated by Naomi's conversation skills because she listened just as much as she talked. And she said when she would listen to her, she gave her full attention. She was very charming and she felt completely at ease. Adana said although she was very comforting to be around, Naomi had some quirky behavior. She kept crystals in her room. She was always searching for like the next woke or new religion to practice, the next spiritual journey per se. And she worshipped some ancient Norse gods and some ancient Mesoamerican gods. Adana said she just thought that this added to her character, like she was a different person. She wasn't judging her. And things were going well for about 6 months. Then Adana started dating a sweet guy named Ryan, and that's when things started getting weird. Adana said the weird behavior started with barely noticeable things. She had a plant, a little cactus in the kitchen, and one day she was repotting it and she noticed buried in the dirt underneath the cactus was a small clump of black hair. She thought that was strange, but she thought maybe it had just been there all along, so she threw it in the kitchen trash. And then there was the candle thing. There was a small console table with just a statue of David on it. Adana said it was hers. She kept it minimalistic on purpose. It was outside of her bedroom door. So one night she gets up, goes to get some water, and she notices there's a candle on the table and it's burning, but it's not a normal orange-yellow flame. It's burning blue and there's no wax around it like it had just been lit. She said it almost looked fake, but she looked closer and realized it was real. She thought maybe it was just like a scent candle, so she blows it out and goes in her room. The next morning, she leaves her room. She's up before Naomi, and she realizes the candle is burning again. She's like, this is weird. She said she was always up before Naomi because she had to be at work at 7. Naomi worked from home but didn't have to be at work until 8:30. Again, the candle is completely intact, no wax melting, but it's burning, so she blows it out again. She leaves for work. She gets home, the candle's lit again. She goes up to Naomi. She's like, hey, what's the deal with this candle? And Naomi's like, oh, it's just a nice touch. Naomi's like, okay, well, it makes me nervous that there's just like a lit candle burning at night or while we're asleep or whatever when I'm not home. And Naomi's like, okay. And she asks her why it doesn't seem to be melting, and Naomi just says it's a long-lasting candle. The next night, the candle's gone. Adana said at this point in her life, things had gotten busier. She was still dating Ryan, she was working, and she didn't spend as much time with Naomi as she did when they first moved in together. But she noticed when she would see Naomi, she would be like whispering to herself. It seemed like a chant or a prayer. She thought it was just something to do with one of her new religions. But it increased in frequency over time. It was like she was chanting and repeating something anytime she was around Adana. Around this time, Naomi also started spending more time in her room, but Adana really didn't think anything of it. She had a lot going on, and she thought maybe she was just working a lot more. One Friday, Adana goes straight to her boyfriend's house after work, but then she realized that she forgot her computer charger at home, so she went back to grab it. When she pulled into the parking lot of the apartment complex, she noticed a weird blue light coming from Naomi's room. She said it wasn't a TV light, it was in a pattern, and it was flickering in patterns of 3. Not wanting to scare her, Adana goes in the apartment. She knocks on Naomi's door. She's like, hey, what's going on with the light? Like, I saw you from the parking lot. Is everything okay? And she said that the way that Naomi opened the door was just enough so she could stick her head out, but she told her it was just the TV. But then Adana said that when she saw in the room, she could see a pattern of candles around on the floor. She didn't press her on it. She just grabbed her charger and went to her boyfriend's house. A few weeks later, her and her boyfriend were going to Charleston for the weekend. Upon coming back to the apartment, she finds a voodoo doll attached upside down to their front door of their apartment. She said the head was made of moss, the body was made of sticks, and she thought it was strange because the moss was the same kind of moss that she saw in the trees in Charleston. It wasn't around in their area where they lived. She said at this point she had like a sneaking weird suspicion that Naomi had followed her to Charleston to get the moss, but she couldn't prove it. So she asked Naomi, like, hey, do you know what's up with this voodoo doll on the door? And Naomi says no. And she goes to look at it and she says basically that she thinks it was just a prank from the neighborhood kids. Adana thinks that's weird because she's like, they've lived there for 10 months at that point and nothing strange like that had ever happened. So she tells Naomi, like, I don't think it's a prank. And Naomi says, I'll take care of it. I'm going to take it out into the dumpster. So Adana goes in the shower. By the time she gets out, Naomi had already gotten rid of the doll. About a week after that, Adana started feeling really sick. She thought she had the flu or like a virus or something. So she goes to the doctor. The doctors can't figure out what's wrong with her, but they tell her basically just to rest. But she said no matter how much she rested, she could not get up. She had no energy. So she started taking a few days off work. She said her sleep pattern changed at this time too. She was like sleeping in and out. She had like these weird fever dreams. And in these dreams, they were like nightmares. And she saw something standing over her, manipulating her body like a puppet. One day while she's home sick, Naomi's out and she decides she's going to go in her room and just see what's in there. So she opens the door and she said the air hit her. It was hot and humid even though the rest of the apartment had AC on. It was cold. And then she felt sick because she saw a circle of red candles on the floor that had never been lit. And in the middle of the red circles was the voodoo doll. She said the doll was in a glass box. She immediately grabs the glass box, she opens it up, and underneath the doll is a piece of paper with her name, her birthday, and a photo of her and a chant or prayer. She says she doesn't remember exactly what the chant or prayer said, but it was something about creating you from leaves and dirt. She said it also said something about the life force feeds from you. Inside the box was also a glass vial full of black hair. There was also some dirt in the vial, and she thought immediately about the cactus plant and the clump of hair that she had found. She also then realized that it was probably her hair, and she said she felt immediately sick. She got like overwhelming. She felt like she was hyperventilating, and she felt like the room got hotter the longer she stood there. She put the box back. She immediately goes to Ryan's and stays with him the rest of the time while she's sick. They start doing some research online, and they find a blog that talks about tulpas. She said she had never heard of a tulpa, but as she was researching, she thought maybe it had to do with witchcraft or voodoo, but it ended up being much more scary than that. It was actually an entity that can be created out of energy. Sorry, energy and intention. They came to the conclusion that Naomi was using her as the source of this tulpa that she was creating. She gets freaked out and immediately makes an appointment with an energy healer. The energy healer tells her that her feeling sick is a sign that the tulpa is almost completely formed and that she has to be careful and get rid of it now, because if she doesn't get rid of it, the tulpa will permanently attach itself to her because she's its life source. The energy healer also tells her that when creating a tulpa, the person can't use themselves because they'll feel drained, so they have to use somebody else. She tells her that the candles that she had noticed that didn't seem to be burning were actually burning off of her energy. She described it as like a plasma flame. And then she tells Adana that her aura is blue, and that's why the first candle she saw, the flame was burning blue. She also explains to Adana that the ball of hair was to harvest some of her essence and that she had buried it under the plant because she noticed that Adana was always paying attention to the plant, watering it and moving it around to get sun. She also tells her that Naomi most likely did go to Charleston to get the moss, and that the moss was a way for Adana to make a connection between the doll and herself. Everything that Naomi was doing was a way for her to get Adana to pay attention, which then in turn fed the tulpa. She also explained that the prayer or chant she had been reciting was likely a chant that she had made to feed the tulpa, and that Naomi was probably well aware that Adana could hear her. She did this on purpose to feed the tulpa, and the more that Adana paid attention to it, the more alive the tulpa became. The healer tells Adana that she needs to go to the ocean to cleanse herself with ocean water, and that she needs to drench the doll and the moss and the hair in ocean water as well. She also instructs her to bury it all deep below the beach. So Adana goes home. She could hear Naomi chanting. She said she was terrified, but at least this meant that the tulpa wasn't fully alive. The next day, Naomi leaves. Adana breaks into her room, takes everything, and goes to Ryan's house. She said around 4:30 that day, she started getting tons of missed calls and texts from Naomi. She had 32 missed calls. Naomi's threatening to call the cops on her for stealing her things. Adana said she was super scared because she had never experienced anything like this, but Ryan luckily tells her that she can move in with him until they get this figured out. Adana tells Naomi that she wants to break the lease, and she literally starts staying with him that weekend until Naomi's gone. They go to Charleston, they bury the doll. She said she has not had anything happen since. She goes back a week later to get her stuff, and Naomi's already gone. She said she didn't touch any of her things. She had just taken her own things and left. Adana said she hasn't talked or heard from her since. She deleted all her social media profiles, and she thinks she blocked her number because all of the messages that used to be blue are now green. She also said she has a picture of the voodoo doll, but she couldn't send it in the submission form. So once she gets back to me with that, I will post that with an update. I'll be adding this story to the Creepy Roommate playlist. Keep sending me your roommate stories. I'm going to take a break from the supernatural after what happened in the mountains this weekend. I'll get back to that, and I have more Appalachia stories as well, but I just feel like I need a little mental break from that.